one and all. Welcome to this edition of Kitz Corner. Hope you're in a fantastic day so far. I apologize for my hoarse voice, but the show does have to go on, especially with more revelations of the January 6th footage that's been released on Tucker Carlson. He's did massive reports on this on his show, and we want to show you more details just to prove exactly how this was fabricated theater, how this was manufactured, and how the establishment used this as a ploy to go against ordinary citizens and how they continue to do so. So, one of the big things is the use of informants, which the mainstream media hardly ever talks about. They hardly talk about how the FBI, the CIA, the intelligence community have used informants in multiple situations where they disguise them undercover, they use civilian clothing, and they create more of a ruckus. Again, to try to sell you the idea that these, peaceful protesters, people that actually want to peacefully change the system, are actually violent criminals and try to demonize and exploit those people. And one of the people that got mentioned commonly in January 6th was a guy by the name of Ray Epps. And he was the guy that announced in the streets that he wanted people to storm the Capitol. You remember seeing that video footage where he wanted to storm in and people were saying, no, 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 he was a Fed. People were screaming at the top of their lungs that this guy was a Fed because they didn't want to do it. They didn't want to, do something illegal. They knew it was wrong to begin with. But here was an FBI informant dressed in civilian clothing, looking like an average Trump supporter, to try to create chaos, to try to create and manufacture this riot, even though it was never supposed to be a riot, to go against these people. And Tucker Carlson here, once again, is going to reveal exactly how Ray Epps and FBI informants were also involved in this to make this situation even worse than what it was. And it is again, this is really revealing a lot how the establishment uses events like this to ploy against people. Take a listen.
If there's one takeaway from the corpus of footage that we spent 3 weeks looking at, it's that the January 6th committee lied. Its members are liars. And as the result of those lies, core civil liberties in this country were eroded. People went to prison. They're in prison as of right now, unjustly. So those lies had consequences. So you have to ask yourself, whatever happened to the members of the January 6th committee? These liars who hurt people and the country. Well, let's see. Adam Schiff is running for Senate. Adam Kinzinger got a job at CNN. Liz Cheney somehow wound up a professor at the University of Virginia, the august University of Virginia. They're all...
So it goes to show you how classism also works in this. Because ordinary people get convicted of crimes more harshly than our leadership that has done even more substantial worse crimes against humanity. Like, these are notorious thugs and killers that control us. We have a criminal cabal that has control over our economy, over our security, over our health care, every single aspect of our lives. We have a criminal cabal that's in control of us, and they've gotten away with far worse crimes than any normal person would. And one of the big things is that they lied. They orchestrated and manufactured this January 6th committee to try to investigate the situation, even though they didn't want to investigate it because it would reveal the truth that this is all part of their ploy. And it revealed, so much of the establishment playing against people and how, folks like Liz Cheney, who's already a family of war criminals, has also added lying to her list of criminal acts against people. And they get promoted. They go to different jobs. They get, escorted out. It's the, the revolving door effect. So they don't get the slap in the face. They don't get scrutinized. They don't get penalized for anything that they do. They just get a different job. They get relocated. They get promoted to something else. Well, people that were peacefully demonstrating their rights and civil liberties are rotting in a jail cell right now.
Still there. Benny Thompson. Ooh, listen to his wisdom. But they're liars. And above all, this video proves it. Here's another installment. One of the enduring mysteries of January 6th is the role that intelligence and law enforcement agencies played in the events of that day. We know there was some number of undercover federal agents in the crowd at the Capitol. Officials have since admitted that under oath. But what exactly were they doing there? The January 6th committee worked hard to hide the answer to that question. We do know from contemporaneous videotape that a mysterious figure called Ray Epps encouraged the crowd to go into the Capitol. For some reason, Epps has never been indicted for that. But there's no question he did it.
We need to go into the Capitol!
Under public pressure, the January 6th committee finally interviewed Ray Epps. Epps told the committee that he never entered the Capitol and therefore never committed a crime. His text messages showed that at 2:12 p.m., he boasted to his nephew that he had, quote, orchestrated the protests at the Capitol. He admitted he helped get people there. Yet, curiously, congressional Democrats consider Ray Epps an ally, not an insurrectionist. Tonight we can tell you that at the very least, Ray Epps lied in his sworn testimony to the January 6th committee. Epps testified that when he sent the text messages to his nephew, he had already left the Capitol grounds to return to his hotel room. That is not true. The surveillance footage we found shows that, in fact, Ray Epps remained at the Capitol for at least another half an hour. You're seeing that on your screen now. What was Epps doing there? We can't say, but we do know that he lied to investigators. The January 6th committee likely knew this too. Democrats had access to the same tape, yet they defended Ray Epps. No honest investigation would do that. But the point of the January 6th committee was never to investigate anything. The point was to stage a made-for-TV show trial. From the opening moments, the tone of the hearings was almost comically overheated and polemical. There is not a tragedy in American history that Democrats didn't liken to the protests of January 6th.
Just like they had the Russiagate committee and how they had Robert Mueller do a special investigation on Donald Trump and his connections to Russia. And we knew that was all aroused. It was all just theater. It was all grandstanding. And they proved, after all the years and controversial evidence and the fact that people were glued to CNN and MSNBC with these conspiracies and connections, they had proved that nothing came of the sort. It was all fabricated. In fact, we just learned recently that it's been proven, thanks to whistleblowers and insiders, that Hillary Clinton and the Clinton campaign orchestrated stories that want to tie Russia to Donald Trump because she was petrified about the fact she was going to lose to a buffoon of a game show host. So she had to fabricate a story to make him look treasonous. And that's what started this thing. It was also the fact that she was hiding her server and the list of emails that never got investigated, so on and so forth. But the manufacturing of these trials is all just theater. Because in the end, Democrat, Republican, they don't care about this. They want to use this. They want to stretch this out as much as possible to epitomize people for this. You can see it on CNN. You can see it on MSNBC every night. They mention about January 6th like every other day to try to ploy this against people, against their own viewers, for God's sakes.
From a part of the country where people justify the actions of slavery, the Ku Klux Klan, and lynching.
How staged and fraudulent was the work of the January 6th committee? Democrats hired a Good Morning America producer called James Goldston to dramatize the footage they released. They even dubbed in audio to make the pictures more sensational, as in a docudrama.
So they hired a television producer to manipulate the footage to make it more sellable. They try to make it into a blockbuster film. Instead of an investigator or a reporter to figure out exactly what happened, they hire a producer to play around with the footage to sell you more fear. to sell you the idea that this is a violent extremist event. That's how you know this is all fabricated. That's how you know that this is all set up. It was a ploy. It was a manufactured aggression against the Capitol. So they could sell you the idea that the Capitol was attacked and make them look like the victims. The establishment, the same people that are constantly epitomizing people like you.
The networks carried it all live as if it were real.
So that's just, again, another revealing take by Tucker Carlson that you'll never see anywhere on any mainstream network. You think Rachel Maddow is going to take 2 seconds out of her day to mention something like this? No. You think Anderson Cooper? No. Wolf Blitzer? No. Chris Hayes? No. That's why Tucker Carlson took access to it. That's why Tucker Carlson took the jump on this. And the fact that he is the #1 cable news show and he's able to talk about stuff like this. He's able to have, Jimmy Dore as an interview. He's able to have people like Glenn Greenwald on. It's something that Tucker Carlson is able to personify that no other journalist in America is able to do it. And the fact that he's getting demonized by Chuck Schumer because he's showing raw data is just absolutely insane. And it goes against the freedom of speech and the First Amendment. If it was Trump doing this to Jim Acosta or anyone at CNN, they'd be going berserk. But because it's Chuck Schumer going against Tucker Carlson, which already has a fabricated hatred, people already have a fabricated hatred against Tucker Carlson, thinking that he's, an absolute white supremacist without actual evidence to point that claim. He's now trying to demonize Tucker Carlson for showing raw evidence of a national event because there's more to the story than what the mainstream media is telling you. Like the fact that there was FBI informants in this scenario. How the intelligence community purposely infiltrated themselves to make this even worse. And here's also this, just to point out too. This is from Substack.com. On January 6th, a masked man sporting dark sunglasses used a pole to keep the Capitol doors open, urging people to enter. He used his free hand to push individuals inside. Despite the recorded behavior, he has not been charged, arrested, or placed under the FBI's wanted list. So there's individuals that they should be interrogating. There's individuals that they should be investigating. They should be speaking to Ray Epps. They should be speaking to this individual, as you're about to see in the footage here. And this is all easily accessible. This is from the Epoch Times. And here's the footage here. So it says the suspicious actor has not been set on the FBI list. He's not a suspect. He is not being investigated. And it just all seems suspicious. It really does seem suspicious that there's an individual all covered up, and we've seen this all before. We've seen this multiple times where the FBI, again, dons civilian clothes. They pretend to be part of the riot. They pretend to be part of the protest. And they try to escalate the situation. They try to break windows. They try to, set things on fire. Again, to demise the purpose of the gathering, to try to make a peaceful protest seem violent extremists so it can get demonized by the establishment and the rest of the media. We've seen this numerous amount of times, and this is just another example of it. And the fact that the January 6th committee has never mentioned about this, has never brought to terms with FBI or the intelligence community at all being interfering into this. And even the times when they did investigate this. So Ted Cruz, for example, Senator Ted Cruz grilled FBI's Jill Sanborn on Ray Epps and federal involvement on January 6th. So she is one of the directors of the FBI. And she was asked about the involvement of people like Ray Epps and other suspicious informants on the day of January 6th. And they tried to cover it up for so long and tried to hide this away. And even the time when they tried to investigate it, listen to the response what the FBI gives.
Agents or confidential informants actively participated in the events of January 6th.
Sir, I'm sure you can appreciate that I can't go into the specifics of sources and methods.
Did any FBI agents or confidential informants actively participate in the events of January 6th? Yes or no?
Sir, I can't answer that.
So that means she's lying. That means there were informants, because if there weren't, she could easily just say no. She could have easily just said no. But the fact that she says, well, I can't answer that question, proves that she's lying. She's covering it up for obvious reasons. She's covering it up because the FBI, again, uses these tactics constantly to take control of civilians, to take control of citizens. These intelligence communities are not there for security. They're not there to help you. They're there to epitomize you. They secure the establishment. They secure the status quo. They secure the elites that go against you every single day. And that is why these intelligence communities are aligned themselves with politicians, with corporations, constantly epitomizing you, and how they use intelligence communities and their information through, corporations and politicians to blackmail, to segregate people, to demonize people on a daily basis. And here she is lying to you out in the open, lying to politicians about how they use, about informants at January 6th, when we know certainly through raw footage, that there were informants. There were suspicious actors that didn't get called out, that were instigating violence, that were causing a ruckus.
Did any FBI agents or confidential informants commit crimes of violence on January 6th?
I can't answer that, sir.
Did any FBI agents or
answer
FBI informants actively encourage and incite crimes of violence on January 6th?
Sir, I can't answer that.
Ms. Sadburn, who is Ray Epps?
I'm aware of the individual, sir. I don't have the specific background to him.
Well, there are a lot of people who are understandably very concerned about Mr. Epps. On the night of January 5th, 2021, Epps wandered around the crowd that had gathered, and there's video out there of him chanting, "Tomorrow, we need to get into the Capitol, into the Capitol." This was strange behavior, so strange that the crowd began chanting, "Fed, Fed, 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 Fed." Ms. Sandburn, was Ray Epps a Fed?
Sir, I cannot answer that question.
The next day, on January 6th, Mr. Epps is seen whispering to a person, and 5 seconds later, 5 seconds after he's whispering to a person, that same person begins to forcibly tear down the barricades. Did Mr. Epps urge them to tear down the barricades?
Sir, similar to the other answers, I cannot answer that.
Shortly thereafter.
So you know for a fact that she's lying. You know for a fact that she is purposely lying. She's trying to cover this up as much as possible. Even though it's clear as day out in the open that this had to be some sort of federal agency getting involved with this, trying to stir up the ruckus and telling this kid, you should storm in. You should make this as violent as possible. And we don't know how many informants were involved in this. Ray Epps seems to be the popular name of this, but you also saw the suspicious actor that was holding the door. There was another person that was also breaking glass to simulate the idea that they were breaking the glass to storm in. It was just so bizarre. And even people who were at the event, people that were part of it, were calling out these suspicious actors, saying that there were feds. And they knew it. We know it. It seems very obvious to people, but the FBI wants to cover it up so badly that they look foolish by trying to cover this up. Oh, I can't really answer that question. She could have easily just said no. She could have easily just said no, confidently, but she can't. So she's got to make up some excuse that she can't answer it.
After the FBI put out a public post seeking information on individuals connected with violent crimes on January 6th. Among those individuals, in the bottom there, is Mr. Epps. The FBI publicly asked for information, offering cash rewards leading to information leading to the arrest. This was posted, and then, sometime later, magically, Mr. Epps disappeared from the public posting. According to public records, Mr. Epps has not been charged with anything. No one's explained why a person videoed urging people to go to the Capitol, a person whose conduct was so suspect the crowd believed he was a Fed, would magically disappear from the list of people the FBI was looking at. Ms. Sandburn, a lot of Americans are concerned that the federal government deliberately encouraged illegal and violent conduct on January 6th. My question to you, and this is not an ordinary law enforcement question, this is a question of public accountability. Did federal agents or those in service of federal agent actively encourage violent and criminal conduct on January 6th?
Not to my knowledge, sir.
The fact that they showed raw evidence, the fact that they showed him saying it to people, the people were calling him out. He whispered to the guy. He then broke down the barricades. All signs point to an orchestration done by the intelligence community. We all know this. But the feds will never confess to it. The FBI will never confess to it. We'll never have accountability. We will never have accountability and a hold on the intelligence community because the intelligence community is that huge and corrupted. And it was so corrupted that even JFK said something about it. And fortunately, we know what happened with him. That is just, there's so many times and moments. There's so many points that lead to this orchestration that the intelligence community orchestrated, and how they infiltrated this protest. All signs point to it, and they will never be held accountable because the FBI, the CIA, they're hand in hand with politicians because then they're going to blackmail politicians that hold them accountable, and nothing's going to be held accountable. And the fact that this Ray Epps guy, that everyone seems to know the name, but they don't know any other information about this guy. They know that he sounds like a Fed. It's suspicious that he would immediately say storm the Capitol. People were calling him out. It was all over the news, and they even showed the tweets. How the FBI tweeted that we need to hold this guy accountable. We'll give you cash reward if someone can find information about this guy. And literally a second later, they get him off the tweet. He is no longer a suspect. So either he is part of that organization or he vanishingly died. And all signs point to a federal informant. Because it's not just Ray Epps, it's also the other suspicious actors that purposely elevated this situation to make it more violent, more extreme. Again, so that the establishment can scare you and sell you the idea that half the population of America are domestic terrorists. When really, these people are the terrorists. The people that are in charge of you, the people that have control and power and manipulation over you, those are the people that are the domestic terrorists. And they want to sell you the idea that they're the victims of ordinary citizens, that somehow a crowd of individuals overpowered the people of the Capitol. And even me saying that out loud just sounds absolutely suspicious, which I questioned this whole thing the minute I knew about January 6th. So it's good that we're learning more information about this because it's finally coming to details and finally people are awaking to the fact that this is a whole orchestration. It was nothing, diminishing democracy. It was just an entire ploy. It was an entire setup involving politicians, the establishment, the mainstream media, federal agents, and informants going against people and how they want to manipulate, sell you the idea that this is a violent event, even though it wasn't, and also segregate and demonize and vilify half the population, including Donald Trump. And they would have done the same thing if it was Bernie Sanders. They would have done the same thing if it was Tulsi Gabbard. It's all against the establishment. That's why they're demonizing these people. It's going against anyone that goes against them, going against their agenda, that are suspiciously acknowledgeable, that know more about how they're being manipulated, because they don't want an informed public. They don't want people to hold these people accountable. And the truth is finally being revealed. We're finally learning more about their evil ploys.